delighted to welcome Krijn de Koning to talk to us about his practice in this new piece of work, Green Blue, work for the Gibberd Garden, Harlow 2020, and also the new Geographies project manager, Matt Nightingale. I'm Elizabeth Merton, and I'm one of the visual arts curators at UH Arts, which is the arts and cultural programme for the University of Hertfordshire. So a little bit about Krijn first. He has created this site-specific artwork in response to place, as he's done before in places such as Compton Verney, Edinburgh College of Art and Folkestone Triennial. And Krijn was one of 10 artists selected for this project. And Matt will tell you more about that in a minute. Matt Nightingale is a project manager and producer working with Wising Arts Centre to make the new Geographies project happen. And Matt is an experienced producer, lots of exciting projects, including most recently Turning Tides Festival at Greenwich Peninsula.
Hello to everybody. So New Geographies is an Arts Council funded public art commissioning project. In 2017, we did an open call and asked the public to nominate places across the 6 counties of the east of England to nominate places that they thought were overlooked or forgotten in some way. And then we did a further open call for artists internationally and across the UK to propose a project for any of those locations. And we finally whittled it down to 10 projects, one of which is Krijn. But yeah, all of the other projects are listed on the website, and there's lots of resources and stuff on there too, and interviews that we've done over the last couple of years.
Our programme at UH Arts is currently exploring this theme of place, which seems very, very relevant to you, Krijn. And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the key themes in your practice.
First, I would say that my work really originates in the idea of drawing. But then again, when I was quite young, and even in my education, I had started exploring the idea of site-specific works, which for me was really a kind of a logical steps to really make a work instead of just having a paper, for example, doing a drawing on the paper, be able to work directly with the situation. So, and that for me was such a revelation in a way. And the whole idea of working directly to space in a place started being really something that in my practice was really important. I think for me, more basically, it's really a research about understanding reality. It is a research on what is this reality around me. What is this space? What is this architecture? What is the light? Where am I? What is this place? It's also a question like, who am I and who is the other? So all these questions are involved in that for me. But basically the work is you could say, site specific.
That's really interesting that you started with drawing, I think, and then have come to want to kind of really experience the place and the spaces that you're working with.
I think one of the things I remember from when you put your initial proposal together is that you travelled around quite a lot before we even got to meet you and did the first interview. And you created a series of drawings from all of the places that you'd visited, which was one of the things that really drew us to wanting to work with you. And then I recall us travelling around quite extensively too, just looking at potential locations, and then you proposing new ideas and new ideas and new ideas, and always these amazing drawings, which I know UH are going to put together as a small publication, which is great.
Yeah.
Could you maybe give us an idea of like what were your impressions of the different places that you went to? Because you particularly, out of all of the New Geographies commissions, looked at a huge range of places.
What is the other really classic, of course, in art, but specifically in drawing, is that it's all about looking. Also traveling to see places and being invited or being able in a way to really see a particular part, in this case in the New Geographies project, like East Anglia, is for me such a pleasures and rich thing that you can really put your attention and concentration on looking. A lot of pleasure was already given by general public, like, oh, there's this place, there's this old tree, there is this all these particularities, and it was just like, whoa. I had, for me, that was such a nice experience to go and travel around, see some places, and there's so much to see, which is a horrible cliche, but if you really look, you see a lot, of course. And so on different levels, so some really particular things which really are so interesting, strange ruins, or even things you never see, but if you put attention to it, it's really bizarre or odd. But also, of course, what I experienced, what was really interesting, was also on a different level. For example, being in St. Albans, in Hatfield, in Harlow, and I went also to Great Yarmouth. But like how the proximity of London, or Greater London, what that does, and what the influences on that, on these old towns in a way around, and how there is this marriage between authentic and just being part of something that, you know, grows and transport and people. So a really interesting difference between St. Albans and Hatfield, for example. Also, two cities very in a lot of proximity of each other, but completely different in everything, in their character, their architecture, their city planning, or the urban design. In one, history is leading in a way. The other one, it's, you know, it's the idea of a new town. I could go travel in the Netherlands and see these things probably, but of course, if you are in a different country, there's slightly different things, and you of course you get a lot more attentive because there's also things that are different. So it's really, so for me that was just a very rich experience. Imagining something to do there and to alter it, or to show it, or to make it more strange, or to just clarify it, you can go a lot of ways, even when the reality to make something in public space is as hard as everywhere in the world. But
you know, the complexities of trying to do something in public spaces is also part of the process, like just going through that process of finding different venues, coming up with ideas, making new drawings, trying to figure out the practicalities of, can it work? Are we allowed to build something in this kind of location? And then having to rule things out till you get to the point where you actually get the final work in the final place.
Public environment always includes a lot of people who have a lot of objectives, or they have a lot of, you know, it's a complete different game in a way, which is logic because it's public. But we did do something.
We got there in the end. We got there.
Which is really and drawing really is that platform to dream, isn't it? And to look and to observe and to capture, and then you have to go into the practicalities of, like you're saying, Matt, can this happen? Can we do it? And I think that sense of drawing and looking has been reflected in the way that the sculpture at the Gibberd Garden does frame people's views and enables a re-engagement with space. But maybe if we go back a step, I'd be really interested to know, both of you, what were your first impressions when you first went to the Gibberd Garden?
I find it kind of extraordinary. It's slightly like stepping back in time, but it also feels quite modern at the same time. There's an interesting house, like the home of Sir Frederick Gibberd, and an archive in there of all of his work as a architect. I mean, I found the gardens really beautiful, but the things that I kind of focused on were like the little man-made curiosities, like things that have just been made out of recycled bottles, and they're just kind of buried into the sort of concrete in a step or something like that. Like overall, it just feels like this beautifully designed space, which obviously all the volunteers maintain really well. But it's those little quirks that make it feel like this was actually a person's garden and they've kind of physically made it.
So that sense of the home and the domestic.
Yeah.
Captured.
Yeah. I mean, there's something really beautiful. Like it's kind of on a grand scale compared to my garden, but it feels very personal.
What you, as Matt says, it's really, you feel there's a personal history in it. The idea of different rooms in a way was very present. I think that's due to the fact that Frederick Gibberd, of course, he was an architect, but then also for a kind of a new town modernist architecture. I thought he was also pretty not chaotic, but rich in the sense there was a lot of particularities. You know, a bit like, in a way, yeah, really this sort of dance with nature. Probably he was faced to people that are volunteers and really cherish that situation, do work there or keep it and organize it, which also was really directly, you can feel that. It was really, really beautiful.
Could you talk a bit more about what inspired the final work, Green Blue? I know you mentioned the rooms, and that was obviously something that really led to developing an idea of a structure, but could you tell us a bit about what drew you to that particular position in the garden, and then also what informed the sort of structure itself?
You enter from these different spots in the garden, in a way like rooms. In a way, you have this really, so it's really a journey with a lot of things happening. But then was one thing at the end of the garden, it's a bit more like of low part of the garden, a bit swampy, most far out. There was a more empty space in a way. you know, you have a couple of trees, but they are together in a large space, and this idea of what is it, one tree or is it a couple of trees, you know, it becomes a bit fluid. So it's a group. And it's also, in a way, from far you can see it as an object, and then you come close, and then you can go in it. It's like you know, and that is very spatial at the same time. So it's very architectural, and that was something I really liked about that, about these objects of little small group of trees at the back of that garden. The work is with that situation, but it's also against the situation. Putting this basic architecture in the architecture of the trees, it goes a little bit with that situation. So you add a more complicated architecture even already in that situation. But it's also totally against that situation, because it's very constructive, it's material, it's not nature, and it really is an alien also. It plays with time, funny reversed thing of time, that normally a kind of a basic architecture, which refers to ruins also a little bit, is most of that is taken by nature. So trees grow on it. And now you have this situation of Greece, and there's an architectural work that is really very deliberately, carefully placed in between the gaps. So it's a funny reversal in a way of that. That is what I liked. Color, funny enough, is putting a horizon in the work, and that is really against the situation. The situation is one of very spatial, obstructive, and depth. A door, a tree. To put a horizon in it with the color, down is green, below is slightly blue, is really against the situation. So also there, and that gives a lot of life.
And that green blue, like you say, they're colours that you'd find in nature, but the way they're used, they also are telling you about this kind of slight, not disharmony, but the fact that it's playing, like you're saying, playing with the circumstance, playing with being old and new, playing with being an artwork in a garden full of art.
In a way, these walls put together is a very strong object, very coherent. It's walls, same doors, there's measures coming back. But dividing that in two colors also is really interesting for me. It really is going against that unity of the work. I have never done that, to divide the work in two colors like that. Never. So it's just so nice to see that and what that does in that situation.
It's good that it's been an opportunity for you, Krijn, to push your work and try something new as well.
I was going to say, there's something really nice about that horizon line. It sort of shifts your point of view, like it changes the way you look at it.
Yeah.
There's a sort of natural inclination to try and either line up your eyes with the horizon line, or try and make that line up with the next wall in the background. This work is an object that you interact with and you walk through it. It's more inviting thing to kind of physically interact with.
If you look at sculptures in a garden, especially this one as well, to try to see what was the reason to put it and why. But it's a lot of it is just objects coming from somewhere, being placed in a situation. So then you can make choices like, okay, is it nice next to this bush? Is it nice next, or is it in this arrangement? Is it nice? Or because my work is really completely considered with the situation directly. Yeah, it's not separate.
Krijn, over to you. Have you got anything that you would suggest for people who maybe wanted to make similar art to you?
Yeah, well, then I should directly say probably this would be more for artists than the designers, because what I would like to say is then something that you probably would not recommend in other situations, or, for example, to your children. And I sometimes say this to students, as well, art students, like act first, then think. Which for me really kind of pushes the idea that as an artist, it's very good to act, to do things, explore things in pleasure, do a research, do things. And of course, thinking is very important, I think. So you do something, look back at it, analyze it maybe, but don't invent art. Yeah, even allow expression, first thoughts, energy, pleasure, allow that really to take place. And then look, why did I do that? Why I think this is nice, or why that doesn't feel right, or, you know, so that is interesting.
I suppose what I was thinking is a bit of an extension of that. From as somebody who works mostly as a project manager, and you're always thinking about what's practically possible. And I suppose my tip would be to sort of think ambitiously and like draw and make, and like Krijn was saying, like think and just do something before you start analysing whether it's feasible or practical or within a budget, or can it be built that way even. My brain always seems to jump to but that's not even possible, like physically possible. There's no way we can do it within budget. We haven't got time for that kind of a scale of thing. And then it kind of lowers your ambition from day one. So I think just sort of feel expressive and optimistic that everything is possible. And then you can kind of start whittling down the practicalities afterwards.
So thank you so much for talking with me today. People can find out more on newgeographies.uk website and also uharts.co.uk, and there will be opportunities to engage with the installation digitally and physically, and we'll be doing some online workshops, so do check out our website.